All right, so what is this technique that is storming the nation? It's killing them everywhere you go. Not killing them literally, but figuratively, it's absolutely killing, not killing, it's catching a lot of bass. That's what it's doing. It's catching a lot of bass. And so we're trying to catch and release is what we're trying to do out there. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not killing them. So, but it is very effective. And so the technique that I'm talking about is a technique that I used, sort of giving the backstory on this. I used a technique very similar at Cherokee 2017, a Bassmaster Elite Series. I won the event using a Demiki rig, okay? That was using a 1/2 ounce jig head or a 3/8 ounce jig head with a small 3-inch soft plastics minnow style little bait. Now it's sort of evolved, forward facing sonar has come on, and all of this stuff is going on where it's like, this bait has, in this technique, has stormed the tournament bass fishing world and has proven its value no matter what kind of species you're fishing for in the bass, as far as bass goes. It just catches big walleye, it catches just big ones, period. So, without further ado, the bait also was a bait that I won Lake Guntersville on. It's a technique that I've caught 30 or 40, I think it was like 37 by the end of the year, over 6 pounds on this bait right here. All right, and this bait right here in my hand is called a Freeloader. So as this has sort of developed throughout the years, now don't, little Hudson. So this technique has developed over the years, and don't just coin this for some of my bank fishermen out there and some of my fishermen that don't have forward facing sonar. Do not worry. This technique is something that is not limited to just that. I promise you, I've seen the power of it, and we're going to show you exactly the action. I'm not going to tell you what it does. I'm going to show you in the pool with underwater to support what is actually transpiring. Now, first things first, you do have to pick a good jig head. For me, my favorite jig head is this hybrid swim bait jig. This is a VMC jig head. This is the same jig head that I won Lake Guntersville on, and it has a screw lock to it. So on the very back of it, I'll show you basically on the very back of this guy, screw lock right there, 1/4 ounce. I'm gonna go ahead and pop him in there, right there, and you're gonna rotate your bait around that jig head, okay? The key is you don't really want it kinked up too much. You want them straight, you want them narrow, and you're good to go. This looks pretty good to me. That being said, this little guy right here might look like it's just a jig head and a minnow. It's way more than that. And so sort of like after Lake Guntersville, I got to where like in my mindset, I was like, holy smokes. Obviously it was something that absolutely, it was insane how powerful one technique and one fishing lure could be on a pressured body of water and catch. I mean, I think I had almost 30 pounds one day. I had 29 first day and like 25, well, 29 the third day and 26 the last day. And it was 20 or 25 something, I believe, somewhere in there, mid-20s. And it just, every single fish except for one was caught on that lure right there. So without further ado, let's not dive into too awful much. We can talk a little bit more about it, but I will say 1/4 ounce is my favorite. 5/16 would be, if I'm fishing a little bit deeper. A 3/16 was gonna have more action, and I'll explain that later, but this is by far my favorite jig head for that. You can, if you want to, open up that hook just a smidge. A lot of times I'll just tweak it just a little bit to where my hook point comes up a little bit more, but this is definitely my preferred jig head for this technique. So let's go ahead to the pool, let's see what's going on, and I'll explain a little bit more with underwaters and what's going on under the water and why the bass are eating it so well. Okay, so the big key with this technique is as you throw that bait out there, like I'm shaking that bait sort of in that middle part of the column. You know, I really want it towards the bottom, you know, but the key is really throwing slack at the bait to allow that bait to rock. And you'll really see the more you do that. Now, that's the real key in understanding, like, that's what's so cool about it. You can make it really, really subtle and just sort of pop it around and it just sort of like shimmy like this, or I can really make it rock. And the lighter the head is gonna allow me to let that bait rock more. And that's really, for me, is really the key into triggering fish into biting. So I played around with this technique even shallow, like down grass edges and stuff, like a 16th or so, and just catching fish that I knew were there and they weren't biting a topwater or maybe a fluke, and throwing this bait out there on a 16th ounce jig head and catching them the same way. So really, I think you're going to see over the next couple years how quickly this technique is, how effective this technique is. And you know, as far as setup goes, I'm really big on like my 7-foot like medium action rod, a faster tip. So I'm really like allowing that tip to sort of shimmy and shake as I throw that slack back. I really want a softer tip in this technique. And I'm not a big fan of a soft, super fast tip rod, but in this scenario, I am definitely, I think it's needed. And it definitely does seem to make a difference. Now I also say lighter braid. So like I'm throwing a light braid, this 8-pound nano braid. And so for me, that nano braid allows like to cut through the water a little bit different, a lot less drag on my bait, and allows that bait to sort of really act right in the water column. So the big key for everybody out there that doesn't have, you know, forward-facing sonar is really going to be more so in just getting that bait out there and sort of figuring it out as you go. Just sort of shake it, let it hit the bottom. Hits the bottom, start shaking it. Shake, 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 figuring out your cadence for that day. Maybe let it hit the bottom again, bop, and go to shaking it in again. That's a lot of times when, especially when the fish are towards the bottom, that's sort of how my cadence goes throughout a cast. But it's just a daily technique, and it's one that this bait right here is obviously really excelling.